Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's Wednesday, October the 26th. It's the morning after the night before. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 Twitter handle. You know that by now. And I'm joined today by at Sean Martin TCW, Sean Martin, and Aidan Macdonald at Aidan C Macdonald. How we doing, guys?
Not bad, Tony. Yourself?
Okay, yes.
Nah.
Not chirpy as I thought I might be, but there you go. But we'll get to that any second now. Just direct you to the ticker tape at the bottom, guys. You know what I'm going to say. Subscribe to the Celtic Way. It's £1 for 2 months of full access to everything that we do on the site and also the podcasts. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's £1 for 2 months of full access. Hit that subscribe button, guys. If you already subscribed, thanks very much. And if you're going to be a new subscriber, then there's a bargain. £1 for 2 months for hitting a button. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, guys, Celtic bowed out of European competition last night. Aidan, I'll come to you first. Celtic won, Shakhtar Donetsk won. I can see Sean's busy doing some calculations there in the background, methinks. So we'll go to young Aidan. Aidan, disappointing night again for Celtic, but it's the story of the Champions League Group F campaign, isn't it? They had their chances.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like we've been here before in terms of last night's game. Maybe not quite as many opportunities as the first game against Shakhtar, for example, or maybe even against Leipzig at home. But yeah, overall, it was a bit of a frustrating night, Tony, to be honest. And it does feel like a missed opportunity and one that you might look back on and say, could have been doing a bit better on this group overall.
Sean, your thoughts? I wrote a piece today, it's on the website, talking about how Ange turned to the dynamic duo and should have put up the bat signal instead of the disco lights.
Holy no clean sheets, Batman.
Yes, holy no clean sheets, Batman, indeed. Holy nightmare, as Robin would say. But it's, that was needs must and all that. It was a shocker, a bit of a curveball for the team. Like to point out, in fact, that young Aidan and myself got 10 out of 11, Aidan, didn't we? So there you go. That was not bad. I'm happy with that, Aidan. I can live with that. But Sean, your takeaways from last night, is it doom and gloom, or are Celtic, as I've alluded to in that piece that you'll probably put the link up, on the right road?
No, I think they're on the right road, aye. It's never a happy occasion when you don't get the result that you want and all that, I know, but you used the phrase bigger picture in your piece, and I do think that most people will see the bigger picture and see the road that Celtic are on under Ange Postecoglou, and I don't really see much in the way of overreaction. I don't know about you two, I don't know if you've seen a lot of that. I've not seen a lot of it, and I think that speaks volumes for what we talked about yesterday, the belief in the buy-in. And if anything, don't know if this is maybe hyperbole or whatever, but if anything, I'm more bought into it after this Champions League campaign, because I think the players are. Now, that's not to say that there's no places they can improve, because there obviously is, finishing being the main one. Some positioning things, some things where Matt O'Reilly alluded to last night, you can get away with it in domestic football, but maybe not quite up to the sharpness of Champions League football. But that's where I think Ange Postecoglou's probably called it spot on post-match again, when he said that there isn't a magic formula and it is about experience at the Champions League level. The only kind of, I wouldn't say over the top criticism, because it's something to look at and think, right, Celtic should be doing this at some point. The kind of critique that I've saw is, look at Club Brugge, look what they're doing in Europe this year, but they've been in the Champions League a good few years. This is Celtic's first time back in it, and it's Celtic's first time in it under Ange Postecoglou, playing this type of football and this brand of kind of philosophy, if you want to put it that way. So, yes, I did expect him to win a game, might still win a game. Still got to go to the Bernabeu, you never know. So that part is disappointing. Obviously, it's disappointing not to be even in with a shout getting into the last game of getting European football after New Year. But no, I'm not going to go doom and gloom with it. I do think that you're still on the right road. Keep most of this squad together. Maybe add a couple here and there. And I think next year, having learned these lessons, I think you'll see different outcomes.
Aidan, there's a time for going studs up. I don't think this is the time for going studs up on the team. And you could tell the measure of the disappointment by Giakoumakis Matt O'Reilly and Angie's after-match comments.
Yep.
Celtic players are disappointed that they couldn't transfer their domestic form in the way they play into the Champions League, but it is fine margins, and in every game that they've played, there might be parts where they've been outplayed for periods, but they've certainly been in every contest and had moments in every contest where, if they were more clinical, the outcome could have been also different. I look at last night, Kyogo's chance that Giakoumakis lays in a plate for him. You know, a Kyogo last season would have buried that, no bother. You know, but I don't want to even broach on Seacan's chance because that's the miss of the century, but they had their moments too. But I think when all is said and done, Celtic just, by that lack of a clinical edge, has cost them.
Yeah, it has in the end, Tony, and I do agree it's not the time to go studs up, and there has been positives to take from the campaign overall. I think my personal disappointment is, given the opportunities across the two Shakhtar games, that we just take both of them in isolation, to be walking away with no European football after Christmas is a wee bit disappointing. But I do agree with what Sean was saying. All the signs are there that in Europe, Celtic are progressing in the right direction. And if we can keep the same players, the manager for next season, as both you guys mentioned, get some more players in, and hopefully longer term, we will be able to progress in the Champions League. But, you know, when you're just coming off a result like that in a campaign, when it's a wee bit raw, it is a bit frustrating. But I think longer term, we'll look back on, maybe particularly at the end of the season, as, you know, there was positives there the manager and the fans can take from it.
Sean, this is an experienced team competing at this level. The manager said that himself. You know, lots of guys playing at this level for the first time is to be expected. But you can hope that this experience does stand them in good stead, and it's been a worthwhile experience. I know they've not yielded the results that they've wanted, but everything has to have a purpose, doesn't it? Everything has to be worthwhile in the end up, if you're going to improve and be, as we say, on that right road.
I think so. The way I kind of look at it, especially with kind of looking at Ange Postecoglou's own comments for over a year now, it's a bigger version of what he says about match by match errors and mistakes and mishaps and setbacks and all that, where as long as you're still doing the same things after it, you don't let it knock your football to the extent that you're not playing the game that you want to play anymore and all that. I think that applies when you're not getting the results in Europe the way that you kind of expect or want to. And the way that he's saying they'll learn from it is next year with, hopefully, as Aidan says, hopefully much the same team, maybe add a couple here or there, that you see that these setbacks in this season's Champions League haven't knocked them when it comes to competing in the Champions League the next time. And in fact, will probably enhance it. That's the aim anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to flick up this comment from Frank Brennan. All right.
Might cut off Aidan said, yep.
It's a critique of us. Okay. Here we go from the guys, and yes, we're on the right road, and the buy-in and all other such trouble. And so the Celtic way is simply still on message with all the brainwashed nonsense, sadly. I'd like to take issue with that, Frank, and say I've never been brainwashed in my life. There's nothing wrong with being positive about your club and seeing the positives from a Champions League campaign that ultimately, didn't yield satisfaction in terms of the results. But I, speaking for myself, not the Celtic way, but I'm on the Celtic way, but I think Celtic are making progress. And if you can't see that, then we'll agree to differ big time. But to say that we're on message and we're all brainwashed, quite frankly, that's a nonsense. And I take real issue with that, Frank. Don't mind a bit of banter to and fro. That's great. But I'm calling you out on that, fella. And if you want to come back in and explain to me what you mean by that, I'll be all ears, and I'd like to respond to that as
Rory,
well.
I don't know if you've never been brainwashed. I was chipping away with you last year about Greg Taylor, and you've become one of his biggest fans these days. So
radical to support Greg Taylor.
Incidentally, by the way, I thought he had another good game last night. But we'll come on to individual performance.
Yeah, but sure. I just think that's a studs up critique of
fair enough. See if he comes back in, but. I know that's my opinion.
And I know that's my opinion as well. So, and I know Frank's entitled to his, but if you're going to have a call out the three of us on that and say we're brainwashed, then I'm going to take issue with that. To be fair, Aidan, you brainwashed? Have I brainwashed you yet? Have I done the Jedi mind trick on you? That's all
You've been radicalising me since I started here, Tony, honestly. I think, you can take positives. There's clear positives there from how the Champions League campaigns went. It's not like Celtic's been thrashed 5 or 6-0 every single game. And we've also expressed at times our frustration as well. I mean, I literally mentioned that at the start, how I was disappointed. But I think personally, there is positives there to take. But, Frank's entitled to his opinion, so...
No, he is. But I take issue to words like brainwashed, especially if it's having a go at ourselves, which I take pride in my own opinion about Celtic.
I just feel sorry for Aidan, not realising he'd signed up to the Postecoglou Pravda.
Anyway,
aye. So I was wanting to put up this, Tony. This is what you seen me scribbling before it. Beach Boys started us off.
Yes,
we created the stream early, and we clocked that. So I'd done a quick kind of calculation just for your benefit, Beach Boys, basically. Beach Boys says, "Morning, guys. Could someone work out Ange's win ratio in big games?" And Beach Boys' definition of big games is European and Rangers games. Now, I'd take issue with that definition to begin with, but on that premise, I quickly looked at it, so I'm hoping these are right. But on just what Beach Boys defines as a big game, European and Rangers games, he's played 27, guys, won 11, drawn 4, lost 12, so 41% win ratio. Take from that what you will. Just thought I'd answer that question. I would say, as I said there, I would take issue with the definition of a big game because I think context means quite a lot. So, for instance, I've included in that not just European and Rangers games. Sorry, I've included the League Cup semi-final and final and the Scottish Cup semi-final because how are they not big games, that kind of thing. But I would also, and I've not included these, but I would throw in the likes of clinching the title against Dundee United, which I know they didn't win, but they still clinched the title, that kind of game. Tony, you mentioned right away the Aberdeen game at Pittodrie last year, which kind of is now acknowledged as a kind of turning point, if you want to put it that way. Ended a months-long away run that was very, very poor for Celtic. I think they're all big games, but nonetheless, I thought I'd look at that. I don't know if that kind of changed with the kind of percentage that you were maybe thinking, Beach Boys, but that's what it is anyway. And then off the back of that, James Smith rightly points out some stats will only make sense with a comparison. For instance, what was Brendan Rodgers' win ratio in Europe? Now, I don't have that at hand, but I'm pretty sure that his win ratio in the Champions League with Celtic was like 35% or something. Now, obviously, there was some absolute scuddings in there as well. So again, take for that what you will, because context is everything. Just saying they won or they lost doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. As I think we're trying to make the point with this campaign, no wins doesn't necessarily mean no positives.
Yeah, and it's also, as you say, the broader definition of a big game.
Aye.
Are we saying big games are just Rangers games and European games? That's, I don't know, Beach Boys' criteria was that. So you've given them the stats for Rangers games and European games, which turned out to be 41%. You say read into that what you will, but I think you can broaden the big game definition out there. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Sean there, Aidan, that there are positives to take. It's not a nice feeling finishing bottom of the group with no wins so far. They can still go to the Bernabeu, as Sean said, and finish the group with a flourish if need be. But it's I'm trying to look at the bigger picture, and we've spoken about holding on to the manager, holding on to these players, and the manager spoke about it himself. There's a determination out, and I think Giakoumakis said it as well, didn't he, Sean? His after-match comments: win the title, get straight back in, and then go and compete again. So, I mean, that's what Celtic have to do now, and ready themselves for that. They know that everything you do, you chalk up to experience. It has to be a learning curve and a decent experience somewhere down the line in order to progress and say that you've learned. Last year, Celtic scored on their travels a lot, but they were playing a decent calibre of opposition, Europa League opposition. This year, they found it different with that step up and passing. I can understand that. But they still went out, Aidan, and approached the games in the same way. The results were different. But as someone in the comments already put, they went out with a philosophy to attack and to win matches. Ultimately, as the manager said, and we've watched for 5 games, they came up short. But short it is, and that's the bitter pill that Celtic fans have to swallow at this minute in time. But in the hope that if they get the chance to do it again this time next year, they'll equip themselves better.
Yeah, and I think we have spoken about this, that the experience that a lot of the squad will get from playing in the Champions League for the first time, regardless if the results haven't been ideal, will benefit them long term, whether it's in their careers away from Celtic or, as soon as next season. Because apart from Joe Hart, Callum McGregor, I know who wasn't involved last night, and James Forrest, who until very recently was nowhere near a starting place, no one else really had Champions League experience. So the fact that the majority of the squad have all now got some group games under their belt will benefit long term, and hopefully we will see that next season. And another year of working under Ange, his training philosophy, his ideas, putting them on a larger stage should mean that maybe next year that sort of anxiety that Matt Riley mentioned in his post-match interview, that might be something that just kind of disappears, and hopefully it'll all come together next year. Assuming obviously that we win the league again, which fingers crossed we will. So yeah, there is positives there, Tony, but I can understand how the day after, when you're finishing bottom of a Champions League group, it can be difficult to see sometimes. But I think longer term it will be looked back on as, there's moments there that you can be positive about.
Beach Boys disagrees. Sean, philosophy is to attack and win. We attacked for 45 minutes in every game and lost. If you see positives, then happy days. And that's fine. You're perfectly entitled to that opinion, Beach Boys. I disagree with that, but then that's just our own thoughts. We give them on the pod every day. And
again, I think that's too binary. You're saying it as if, they didn't win, therefore everything's just doesn't matter. That's not the way I see it. I want to win it, and I'm very disappointed when we don't win it. But that's not to say there's no positives to take from it at all. You need to learn a lesson, otherwise you're just throwing everything at it. Yeah,
get it. I mean, and I go back to what the manager said. In order to be a Champions League club, they've got to be in it every year. That's what he wants to turn. They have to be in there every year. Yeah, and Aussies, let's keep it. I think we're trying to keep it in perspective. There is a time, as I said, to go studs up. I just don't think this is a time yet. It's been a disappointing campaign in terms of wins and performances, because performances obviously equals wins. But I don't think they've been far away, Sean. That's my whole point in all of this.
No.
And I can see what he's trying to do. And yeah, we need to take this as our learning experience and our learning curve, and improve next year if we get the chance to do it all again. If they do the same next year, then yeah, I'd gladly say, right, okay, it's not working. But I think bits of it did work. It just didn't come to fruition the way a lot of people thought it would when they saw the group. They thought, but I still think they competed with RB Leipzig and Shakhtar, competed for about an hour with Real Madrid in the home game, certainly. But there you go. So someone says, far away from where? Well, far away from winning group stage matches in the Champions League. That's what I'm driving at. I think Celtic aren't far away from doing that, Sean. Do you agree?
Aye, I mean, I don't know how many other ways to say it. Aye, that's the way I think on it as well. I've got a few comments to throw up. Sam Harty actually saying delighted you're positive too, Sean. That's in reference. I've seen his comment. He's a subscriber.
Yes.
He commented on your article, Tony, and he actually made a great point, which I think probably encapsulates what I'm trying to say and waffling on about. Sam, I've got his comment up here, said there is room for improvement in front of goal, especially in defence at the margins, but it's not wholesale. It's not wholesale, and I agree with that. Yeah.
Robert Gibson says 60 minutes, decent minutes don't win 90-minute football matches with 30 minutes of fitness short of competing. Well, I think these are things that the manager will address going forward, Robert, and I think he's keen to address them going forward, Aidan.
Yeah, I think the whole fitness thing, sometimes I have thought that as well, but there was other times that when I looked in some of the games, such as Shakhtar away, for example, and even Real Madrid, I didn't see a fitness really issue there, but you could see kind of near the game last night, which is probably one of the reasons that led to the great chance that the boy for Donetsk had near the end. A lot of it was Mudrik's pace as well, to be fair, but the fact that Celtic were caught quite high up the pitch. So fitness did look a slight issue there, but I don't know. I wouldn't say the team look unfit, but maybe it's just the high intensity of the Champions League. Maybe that's something next season you'll see they've benefited from playing 6 games in it. But
I wouldn't have said that was fitness as much as just a slack pass and the space getting exploited by a really good player at that point. But because I thought Celtic actually last night, that was one of the games where they didn't look as if they were out in their feet after 65, 70 minutes and stuff. I thought they generally still created a few chances. The field goal chance came, I think, after 65 minutes. But nonetheless, I mean, I wrote in the player ratings that with Juranovic, I thought a lot of the time he coped fairly well with Mudryk, but it always looked to me as if Mudryk had the ball, he would have the beating of him.
Yeah.
And that counter attack where they scored, he had them twisted always, first and foremost. But it only takes a moment with a player of that quality. So I don't even necessarily hold it against Juranovic that much. I know, Tony, you think you should have cleared them out. I can see you edging to say it, but
there is a moment. There is a moment where that,
and he cut back in.
There is a moment when Mudryk takes a clumsy touch, and I think Juranovic could have slid in and cleaned him out, cleaned the ball out, just taken everything. If he'd have slid in, I really do think that it was Juranovic's ball. But you say he showed him down the line, and then I think if you still give a player of that skill and talent control of the ball, then he's going to hurt you, and he hurt Celtic big time. What a wonderful strike! Not taking anything away from it, but I think Josip Juranovic will look at that back and say, "That's when I should have taken him." I don't know what you thought, Aidan. We'll talk about individual performances, but there is a moment there when that ball was there to be won, and he could have cleaned everything out and risked the booking. It is what it is, because ultimately your man waltzed on another 10 yards and then from 20 yards rattled it into the top corner because he's that gifted a footballer.
No, I do agree that I think that was a time where maybe Juranovic could have went in to try and win the ball, but I think you've seen later on the danger at times of diving in as well. Like Carter Vickers went in to just try and clean him out, basically, maybe also try and win the ball, and he was so quick to just knock the ball right by him. So for all we know, I mean, I know it doesn't really matter because he scored regardless. Obviously, with the rather that he just cleaned them out, but I think it could have been the same outcome if Juranovic went in and he had just knocked the ball by him. But I would say, from watching it on the telly, it did look like you said, they took a slightly clumsy touch, and Juranovic maybe could have gotten the ball. But I suppose it's hard as well, and he's aware in his head of how good Mudryk is. Do you know what I mean? So
even if he doesn't take the ball, Aidan, take him out.
No, yeah, I know.
Take one for the team. I mean, and possibly he might have walked, but I think he would have copped a booking, anyway.
Yeah,
so
I think he'll be disappointed, Juranovic, like you say, when he looks back at it. That
you look at it, there is that freeze frame moment, I think, when he could have taken everything, the ball and Mudryk, but he didn't, and we all know what happened. That's fair enough. Sean, other individual performances, you thought Cameron Carter-Vickers was off it. Maurice Jens.
No, I didn't think he was off it. I just thought Maurice Jens was better.
Was better, And
I thought he had a really good game.
Say Giakoumakis and Maurice Jens were your 2-star performers, weren't they?
Yep, aye. There's still obviously things when you start Giakoumakis up front, you know what you're going to get, and I think as long as you're realistic, I've seen a few kind of comments saying that it's just not quite the guy you want up front in Champions League. He scored, and I thought he played really well. And he also showed a wee bit of an eye for a pass at one point to put Kyogo through for that chance. I don't really know what more you would want from him in a Champions League performance.
Speaking of passes, I thought Hatate's passing was erratic last night. Thought O'Reilly as well was erratic, and both of them were guilty of giving the ball away and putting their team under pressure because they were lightning quick on the counter. Aidan, I don't know if you felt that too. And that's no slight on either of those players, but I just think it's got to be better at that level. You cannot give the ball away cheaply at that level. And that's another lesson that these guys will learn, growing into the competition and playing in the competition more often than not. Ball retention's king, basically. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I would agree, because when you're playing good teams, I know Shakhtar were maybe not at the level of Real Madrid or Leipzig, but when you're up against high quality sides, they can carve you open even if you're doing everything right. So the last thing you want to be doing is giving the ball away right in the middle of the park. And we know how good Haggerty and O'Reilly's passing can be at times. I mean, sometimes it's a ball from them that leads to these chances that we've spoken about in depth. But I thought, given their roles in the middle of the park are so important, at times their passing was a bit erratic, particularly Haggerty's, and I found that against Leipzig as well from Haggerty. But we know how good a player he can be, and in some games this season he's been probably the best player on the pitch by a mile. So he's maybe been a wee bit up and down overall in the Champions League, but I've not got any concerns about him. But I did think his passing and O'Reilly's passing, even O'Reilly's touch at times, maybe left a little bit to be desired. But it's one of those.
Haggerty comes in and says, "But Tony, they both worked their socks off." I've not got any qualms about their application in terms of energy and attitude, Sean. I'm just talking about actual ball at their feet and finding a man, and and I think these are the fine margins that need to be tweaked. And Andrew knows that himself.
You've got to remember that the kind of the almost Guardiola-esque curveball of playing Kyogo as one of the midfield trio, which essentially it was. It wasn't a 4-4-2, no matter what people want to say. It was a 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1 out of possession, but that's the same whether it's O'Reilly in one of the eights or whether it's Moy or whether it's, as it was last night, Kyogo. I found it really intriguing. I actually thought Kyogo done all right, given the caveat that that's not his position. You could tell it was an attacker playing in that position rather than a midfielder, I would say that. But I do think he played a very Kyogo game in a position that isn't very Kyogo. And I think that had an impact on Haggerty and O'Reilly as well. Because, I mean, let's not beat about the bush. Celtic were the better team last night. They created more. They obviously never scored more, but they created more as well, and they had more of the ball marginally. But that meant that O'Reilly wasn't as defensive-minded, I would say, as what he might have been in the Leipzig game. He still had his tackles. He still obviously topped the bill for pressing and counter-pressing and all that. But I do think that despite his massive technical quality, he's only 21. He's not really played, despite what, again, I think it was John Hartson or Chris Sutton says, he's not played that kind of role in senior football the way that, for instance, Callum McGregor is a wee bit older and has before. And it's just hard to replicate what Callum McGregor brings. So you've got to have that caveat for O'Reilly, but then I've also made the caveat for Kyogo there. So that's two of your midfield three that you need caveats for the way that they're playing and the positions that they're playing. I thought O'Reilly did okay and has been doing okay in that role, but I don't think it's a coincidence that his better moments came when he was able to push it further. So it's part and parcel of the fact that you're missing your captain and your leader and the best player in that position in the country, one of the best probably in continental football, I would argue. You're also, let's not forget, missing your best, or at least arguably the best winger, with Jota being out. So again, I'm not using it as excuses, but you can't ignore the fact that for most of these games you've been missing one or two of your best three players.
Well, on that point, Alan Robertson makes a brilliant point, and
that's true.
That was just so frustrating last night that the crossing last night was poor. Set plays need work. How many times, Aidan, did Celtic fail to clear the first man with crossing into the box, or even just someone going down the wing like Abada, a simple look up and picking somebody out rather than just firing it in with no real attempt to find it, hitting and hoping, I think it would be the phrase. I thought last night's crossing into the box was deplorable, actually, diabolical at times. If you're going to be honest, for that level, it has to be better. I keep banging on about it, but it has to be better. The manager knows it has to be better, and I think that'll be a great source of frustration as well, because the amount of chances they could have created with a cross ball and finding a man would have been frightening, because many times they get to the byline and hit the defender, hit it out for a corner, or fail to pick out the guys that were queuing up. I think 3 times at one point Rory Hamilton said Celtic players were queuing up in the box to lash it home, and a accurate cutback would have found them, and they still hit the first man. So I agree totally, Alan. That was a great source of frustration for Celtic last night. Their set piece, they're crossing into the box, Aidan.
That was definitely a disappointing aspect, particularly when you're chasing a goal to try and stay in Europe effectively, and crosses aren't beating the first man, corners aren't beating the first man, set pieces are either being completely overhit or just bouncing off the opposition wall. It's probably something that Celtic do need to work on to an extent. I mean, we've seen plenty of good set pieces as well. Sometimes the short corner can be effective, kind of just opening up an extra bit of space in the box, but at other times, kind of just dead balls. It's got to be better, particularly at that level. I mean, those are real opportunities when you're in the Champions League. If you've got a free kick or a corner, the cross has got to be good, because you're to the extent as well, if you're committing 5, 6, 7 players in the box, you know how good teams, particularly like Shakhtar, are going to be in the counter attack. I mean, we have evidence of that from the first game against Leipzig. I think pretty much all our goals were on the counter attack in that. So that's got to be something they need to work on, and hopefully longer term going into next season, or even for the rest of this season domestically, set pieces is going to be something that Celtic can improve a bit on.
Sean,
you know, I wrote about set pieces last season, Tony, when I was kind of saying it was defending and attacking. Defending, it was a bit of an Achilles heel, but attacking, I didn't feel they were making the most of it either. That kind of get rectified in the tail end of last season. They ended up scoring from a set piece maybe 5 games in a row or something like that. But I still maintained that it was more profiting from the chaos of flinging it in the box and hoping to get a knockdown off somebody at the front post. It didn't strike me as kind of rehearsed or really well thought out routines at free kicks and corners and stuff. Now this season they've been all right, I think. All right at the set pieces. Most of their creativity comes from open play still. But I agree with everything Aidan said there. At that level in the Champions League, you really do need to take that chance to exploit essentially a free attempt at goal or a free chance to get an attempt at goal. And I don't think they did it at all last night. I think, they scored from across technically because Haksabanovic, his wee stutter step, and then the ball in wasn't great. Leila Bada's kind of trademark run from back post into the middle of the box, got a shot away, albeit get blocked, and it fell to Giakoumakis. But that aside, and I include Haksabanovic, who was, I think, the most creative player, but when it came to actual set pieces, even he was off it. The deliveries were really poor.
Now, you talk about chances, Aidan. It'd be churlish not to mention it, even just for a wee laugh. It's Sunak's miss, Aidan, the poor touch that he took, and Sean already tweeted about it, that's not even in the XG because he took a poor touch on, and it's not.
Yeah, they've not counted it because he miscontrolled it rather than counting that as a shot. But obviously, if that was I mean, I don't know what other way to put it.
Aidan, I've seen some bad misses at Celtic Park, but that's up there. That is up there. I mean, I turned away in disgust, thinking, it's just like, that's it, And it was just incredible. I just couldn't believe that he'd missed it.
It was I don't really know what to say, to be honest. The fact he had time as well, like he could have probably taken a touch. It's not like there was somebody breathing right down his neck. That was what I found a bit interesting. And the fact that he didn't realise what he'd done until the ball had almost just... I don't know, even though it wasn't a great touch, I don't know if he thought that was going to be enough to just get it in, because he almost looked as if it wasn't running to try and make sure the ball stayed in play. So it was an interesting one, and the fact Sean saying it didn't even come up in the XG just really shows you how bad it was.
Sean, it's classic. You could have chipped over the ball and put it in the net. He actually did chip over the ball and it didn't go in the net, Aidan, basically.
I know they got off with one there, to be honest, and that would have been even more of a signal, because that would have came again from a bit of a slack pass, then Mudryk's just nipping in away from Carter Vickers. So yeah, I guess that was a slight relief, probably. Was relieved, Tony, probably more than finding it funny, I'll be honest. But
yeah, it was funny, yeah, let's be honest. Sean, you're flicking up comments. Gents, Taylor and GG all very good from JP. The comment before said that Gents was excellent. And I think that's the takeaways that I got from it. I mean, you gave Gents an 8 and you gave Giakoumakis an 8.
I gave Taylor a 7, I think. Taylor a 7. I gave Kyogo a 7, which my mum took issue with.
Don't want to be annoying your mum, Sean.
No, but I think, as I said, I've already explained why, but I think the fact that he was out of position and still played fairly well, I figured was enough for that. Did miss a sitter right enough for a good chance anyway. It was, the thing is, with that chance, for a guy out of confidence, it wasn't half a confident attempt to roll it through his legs. If that had gone in, it would have looked brilliant.
Scuffed it, Sean.
It did a wee bit, but I think it was still trying.
It was pretty powder puff. to go through like that at that stage, and you've got to rattle that, or you could even have taken a touch round the goalkeeper. He had so much time. I don't think he realised they actually had time. A composed Kyogo or a Kyogo Izayan would have buried that in his sleep.
I'd rather have seen him go on either side of the keeper if he was going to hit it first time, but I do think he did try to put it through his legs, and he essentially sat the ball to stop it. But apart from that, sorry.
Sean, here's a sage bit of advice from Sam Harty. Mum's always right.
She'll be sitting going, yep.
That's very true. Mum's always right, Aidan.
Can't argue
it's I'm trying to think, I don't think I give anybody else a 7.
I don't think he did. It was a mixture of 6s, wasn't it?
I think so.
5 for Abada.
I did think, I thought Abada was poor again. I thought his decision making, that run aside, which is his trademark, as I say, he had a couple of moments where he kind of helped Juranovic out defensively. There was a couple of moments where he didn't help him out defensively. But in the final third, I thought his decision making was pretty poor.
I said it last week at Fir Park when I did the player ratings. It's the impetuosity of youth. Sometimes with Abada, Yashtar is only 21, but he has to learn. He has to be more mature in his decision making. I know not everything has to be played at 100 miles an hour. I know he wants to play the way that Ange, that fast tempo, but not everything has to be done at 100 miles. But he does other good things because he walks away from defenders in the box and can get a shot in. It's his shot that led to the ball cannon off the defenders and broke to Giacomakis. He's very good at that, anticipating and getting in front of people. So he needs to get the sum of the whole parts to improve his game. In that sense, Aidan, I think there are bits of Abada that are good, but there are bits that still need a lot of work, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Tony. I mean, we know how good he is in the box. He's lethal, but his touch and his sort of distribution when he's got the balls, it has to be better, particularly in the Champions League. And I know he is a young player, and he's got all the attributes to be a brilliant player. And I have no doubt that whether we see it here or he moves on, he will have a really good career. But at the moment, if he's starting a Champions League game, he can't be as wasteful with the ball in possession, because it just puts you immediately under pressure, particularly if he's losing it in the middle of the park. Just like I mentioned about Hatate and O'Reilly earlier, I mean, their touches and their passing was a bit better than Abada's last night, but if he's going to be part of our front three in the Champions League, he's got to be a bit more disciplined in terms of his output. But hopefully he's another one that will learn from that, just when we're talking about, and then next year, that'll be something that he's kind of eradicated from his game.
Tony, I'll just flick this one up. Beach Boy says, Sean, just in what you've just said, do you blame Ange for his team selection in a huge game then? A forward in midfield, a number 10 and number 6 when he had Moy, Abelgard and McCarthy all sitting on the bench. I wouldn't use the word blame. I did say at the start it was a wee bit of Guardiola-esque tinkering, I thought, to try and get Kyogo and Giacomakis in the team. As I say, I thought Kyogo coped all right with that. I said yesterday, I thought I would have quite liked to have seen Haksabanovic in the midfield 3, but I didn't think it would happen because Jota wasn't fit. What I didn't think would happen is Haksabanovic would start, Kyogo would start, and Giacomakis would start, but it would be Kyogo in the midfield. So I take from that what you will. I wouldn't use the word blame, but I did find it an odd selection.
Any other takeaways, Sean, apart from the curveball that Ange threw at the start with Kyogo and Giacomakis? Do you see them playing future domestic games together?
I don't see why not. I think the thing is with the personnel that's there, there's a lot of different players could play in that midfield, and a lot of different players could play out wide, particularly when Jota's fit again. I thought Maeda done all right when he came on. Caused a bit of havoc.
He's a cracking knockdown as well at one point.
Yep, that was one Giacomakis done for the foul.
Yeah, for the foul, yeah. But it's still
speaking of fouls, by the way, we've not mentioned that off the ball incident, which I seen back last night after it on the TV. The one Giacomakis was running into the box and the guy just kind of...
Yes, indeed.
Do you think that should have been looked at? Or
I do think it should have been looked at, because at the very least it'd have been a direct free kick outside the box, wouldn't it? You could add a potted goal, Aidan, from the D. We've got a couple.
I'm surprised that wasn't looked at, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if there is some sort of thing in the rules or reason why that didn't go to VAR. I don't know. So, but from my perspective, I thought it was a foul.
If it's a couple of yards further forward, i.e.
So
in the
finish
box.
with a penalty, yeah.
They're looking for a penalty, aren't you? So they would have checked that, surely. Or am I getting that wrong? Is that not what VAR does? But I couldn't understand why they didn't look at it both as just an incident and also the fact that, I mean, he's taken him right out of the play.
Sorry, I'm putting up a Frank comment that is just clutching at a positive comment just to take it back to the the bit of negativity, maybe, Frank. But he says, for me, Jens was immense last night, and particularly in the context of Cameron Carter-Vickers being a tad off it when Celtic needed him at his very best. I don't think he was poor, Carter-Vickers. Obviously, he didn't manage to beat Mudryk to the ball for that late chance that led to the howler, but I just think Jens did have an actively really good game. I mean, I've not even mentioned that pass. That pass in the build-up with the goal was phenomenal. We've done that a few times this season. The one thing I've been critical of him for when it comes to his passing is sometimes he dawdles, maybe. He wasn't dawdling last night. He was very much front foot with everything that he was doing. He was decisive in a way that really you've arguably not seen. And to do it at that level was impressive. So I really was impressed with him last night.
Indeed. Guys, that's 41 minutes we've gone for. There you go. Yep. Almost a half of football. And we've dissected it to the nth degree, methinks.
Yep. Yeah. Would you like to end on a positive, Tony? Would you like to end on a big feel-good moment?
Yeah, the positives for me are, as I...
I've got one in mind, that's all.
written in the piece is the bigger picture. I can see what he's trying to do. And I guess we'll know if Celtic have progressed, if they can win the title, get back in, and the manager and this group of players stay together. That's imperative, you know. And Andrew Gilley said we basically played this group with what I missed out there.
McGregor and Jota,
yeah. And you don't want to dwell on things like that, but they are factors. And again, the positive for me is that there's fine margins in football, chances in every game to make that group table, the complexion of that group table, look also different. Didn't take it. That's a harsh lesson you learn. Mm-hmm. Competing, as I've said in my piece, sometimes isn't enough. You have to be clinical, and you have to have a bit of everything. Sometimes you need a bit of luck, but sometimes you need to create your own luck. Be clinical when those moments come along. And I think it's only a learning curve if you learn. I think it's a steep learning curve, but I think this team and manager have the capacity to learn as long as they all stay together.
Yeah, well, as FS says there, I'm inclined to agree with that. It's important to maintain some perspective. Results weren't there, but I see, and I still do see, that we're on the right road in the performances there. And he says, look to improve tactically and with player development. Aidan, one last question that goes to you here from Stephen McMonigal. What's in that picture behind you?
It's a picture of Ashton Lane.
Is it?
In the West End, aye. A choice from my mum. It's not mine, I know. That would be getting hassle now in the comments.
You say that's your mum's choice, is it, Aidan?
It is, I can confirm.
Mums are always
right. Mums are getting pelters a day, aren't they?
I know.
Mums are always right. Sam Harty tell Jane, mums are never argue with mother on these kind of things. They know the sketch.
Right, Tony, the ultimate feel-good one to end on is we've had a wee comment in from the Madrid trip competition winner, which was chosen at random yesterday. I had the pleasure of phoning her. I'm going to put her comment up. Leslie Devine, sorry, you're cutting Aidan's head off again. But she says, morning guys, disappointed about last night, but she's taking the positives from the campaign as we're trying to do. However, she can't help being absolutely buzzing at winning the competition for next week. She says, thank you so much, guys. She can't stop laughing like a big kid, and I can confirm she was giggling away when I told her she'd won it. Hope she enjoys it. I'm sure she goes with all three of our best wishes with the trip. Sure, everybody will congratulate her on it.
Congratulations, Leslie. That's magic. I'm glad you won it, and you seem so happy to have won it. I hope you have a wonderful trip and enjoy the experience. All I can say is, Sean, thank you for your contribution. First class. Aidan, ditto, the same. Thanks for that contribution. Excellent. Really enjoyed that.
Yep.
Well done, Leslie. There you go, everybody. Congrats, Leslie. Indeed, I think that goes without saying. See if his wish her well.
She's still laughing, look. Still laughing.
Thank you to everybody in the comments, and I include Frank in that. Hope you're well, Frank. All the best to you and yours. Disagreements sometimes healthy and it's good. We enjoy it, but we enjoy all the comments that come into the comment section, guys. As I say all the time, we couldn't do it without you. Couldn't have a show without you. So we appreciate that. Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. Celtic interest in Europe ends for this season, but still a league title to be won, to get back in and prove that they have learned some valuable lessons. See how it goes. But yep, it's the end of another Euro adventure for the time being. But hey, if you've enjoyed this podcast and you like what we do on the website, you can read stuff on the website. All you have to do is subscribe to the Celtic Way. It's £1 for 2 months of full access. Get access to everything that's written on the website, as well as the pods. Join us. You know what I'm going to say. Hit the button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. It's as simple, as easy as that. Thanks very much for everything, guys. Appreciated that today. We went a wee bit longer than normal, but hey, that's what happens when you're dissecting a disappointment, I guess. We'll be back tomorrow to start the preview and build up to the Livingston game on Sunday. Tremendous. I wish it was a wonderful Wednesday, but it's not, is it? Sadly. But hey, we move on. And that's what they say. But thanks very much, guys. Cheers for the contribution.
Cheers, Tony. Cheers, Aidan. Cheers, Trips.